Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I am super mega effing excited to celebrate the release of my latest book, The Hidden Temple, which is number 2 in the A Tale of Blade and Darkness series. Now, of course, with everything kind of going crazy with this whole story, it's just like a whole long drawn out thing. So let me go ahead and sort of summarize the thing that is this story. So originally, this half of the book was supposed to be part of the Serpent's Coils. However, during the writing process, I realized it was getting too big for me to put out in one single go. And I did not want to have a massive novel because, well, as an indie author, it's kind of hard to have someone have that much, faith in what you do. So I made the decision to split it up. And I have to say, I am so happy that I did. Not only do I feel like the second half of the story flows better, it also allowed me an opportunity to interact more with certain characters that didn't have as big as a part to play and originally in the Serpent's Coils. And I got to add a lot of really cool things, and it did help me finally cement the rest of the series because, in all honesty, I've been kind of floating around like between 5 or 6 books, and now this series is firmly set on 5. Sorry, brain fart. Anyways, so during this celebration, I will be selecting winners at random for those who participated in the Mania Blitz prior to this release date. So here's kind of how that's going to work. There are 3 main prizes that I will be giving away during this release. Our first place prize winner will receive a signed copy of The Hidden Temple. Our second place winner will receive a framed copy of the world map. And our third place winner will receive a framed copy of the city map of Variance. So I have a randomizer that will pick them for me. However, while I am announcing it here, not everyone's going to have an opportunity to show. So I will be reaching out to the winners after this release. You'll have up to 3 days to get back to me before I pick another person. Because last year I ran into some problems where I kept trying to get a hold of somebody and I ended up having an extra prize with no one to go to. So, anywho's, since we're going ahead and starting off on the beginning, let me go ahead and just get our first winner, our third place winner. So let me click on over to my wheel of names. Awesome. So congratulations, Pate, over on Instagram. You are our first winner of the evening, and you win a framed copy of the City of Rants. So before I move on to any other sections, are there any questions that anybody would like to ask about the novel, the characters, where we're kind of standing at from the other book to now, anything at all? So I did change a few of the characters. Some of the one of the characters I initially intended for that one to be kind of just like a fleeting moment, like they just were coming in, they did their bit, and then they left. And then as I had to work with them a little bit more in the second book, I realized I really did like them, and so I completely changed the role. Hi guys. So right now we are in the middle of our Q&A. So if you guys have any questions that you wish to ask, just go ahead and type them down in the box and I will get to them. And I'm bouncing off of other social media sites as well. No questions? Alrighty. So All right, so I guess what I'm going to do now is we're going to go ahead and move on to the next stage, and that is where I do a little bit of a reading. So I'm going to just read just a small insert from the first chapter, and then we will pick our second place winner. Oh, actually, yeah, before I move on, I just want to kind of laugh at the fact that I dedicated this book to my dogs. Frank and Squeaker, my darling pugs, are typically my number one writing buddies. They're either sleeping on their dog bed or they're sleeping by my feet. And the number of times that I have accidentally kicked Frank in the face is ungodly. Like, I'm surprised his face isn't flatter, in all honesty. But they're there, and they sometimes remind me of when I need to get up by, crying by my feet. So they do make me have a little bit of a break. So let's see. All right. Chapter 1. The world was made up of nothing but liars and daggers hidden in the dark. Sometimes, if the gods were merciful and you were able to see the traitors before they struck. But it was more likely that you would find yourself bleeding out on the cold, hard ground with a dagger in your gullet, staring up at someone you thought was your friend. Gaitlan wished he had been so lucky. Instead, he had survived by running away like a coward. Everything Gaitlan once held dear was gone. All that remained was an empty shell of a body functioning purely on instinct, and a gaping void where his heart used to be. The only reason that he had that much at all was thanks to the woman riding ahead. He glowered at the woman, swaying slightly in her saddle. She had lashed his legs to his saddle and poured water down his throat, along with the bitter herbs. She cursed his name while urging him onward. He wished she would have let him die. He hated her. "We're nearly there," Mirra shouted over her shoulder. She ground her teeth, questioning her sanity, peering over her shoulder, staring at Gaitlan's blank face. She hated him. If he couldn't get his head out of his butt, then so be it. She never cared for him, the spoiled, selfish little prick. It might be easier to dump him into the nearest village and disappear. But then an image of Brealyn's bruised but hopeful face danced across her mind. She couldn't turn away now. Not yet. If she could get the prince into a position where he could fight for himself, then her debt to the princess would be repaid. She looked over her shoulder at Prince Gaitlan again. His head rolled listlessly on his shoulders, his eyes vacant and empty. Now again, flashes of pure hatred or anguish would ripple across his face, but they never lasted for more than a moment. Brealyn left her brother and the kingdom's fate in Mirra's hands like the heroes of old. But she wasn't a hero. No matter what her recent actions might say, her skill set was more suited for thievery, spying, and assassinations. And Gaitlan wasn't helping anyone anytime soon. Her horse stumbled over a rock in the road, forcing her to grab the saddle horn to keep from falling off. She cursed, righting herself, rubbing her burning eyes. Dawn wasn't too far off. She hoped to reach the village by then, but it didn't look like that would happen. Scanning the surrounding woods, Mirra spied a small trail leading into its depths. She dismounted, palming one of her daggers, and crept to the opening. Lingering nighttime shadows clung to existence beneath the canopy of trees. In the pale light, Mirra followed the trail further into the woods and listened. Birds had started to stir in their nests, filling the air with their melodies. Other small daytime creatures rustled in the underbrush. All signs that the way was safe, but Mirra knew that dangers lurked in all sorts of places. She closed her eyes and reached into the place where her magic dwelled. Exhaustion stole her strength from her body and mind, leaving her magic to feel like water slipping through her fingers. She gritted her teeth and dug deeper. Sweat broke out across her forehead as she clawed a large enough thread to serve as her eyes. She flung it out into the woods before it could fade away like smoke in the wind. Energy roiled through her consciousness. Mirra felt the dwindling energies of the nocturnal creatures and the rising energies of the diurnal creatures, but nothing else. Pulling her consciousness back within her skin, Mirra faltered, grabbing onto a young tree for support. Black dots swam across her vision. She clung to the tree, gasping for air until she was no longer in danger of fainting. Gaitlan remained atop his horse, staring blankly into the distance as she stumbled out. We're stopping for some rest. Can you manage? Gaitlan didn't respond, though he did turn to look at her. She took his silence as a yes, loosening the knots that kept him in place. For half a heartbeat, she thought that she was going to have to drag him off the horse and carry him into the woods. But the prince swung his leg over the horse's head, sliding out of the saddle. He took the reins of his horse and waited for Mirra to lead the way. Gaitlan's silence bothered her, but the ache in her bones and the way the road swayed beneath her feet demanded her immediate attention. So I'm going to stop there real quick for a little bit and say hello to everyone who joined in. Buzzing. Sorry. So I'm going to stop right there and open the floor up to any questions that anyone may have. I'm unfamiliar with the name, but welcome, friend. Welcome, welcome. I'm glad that you're already getting addicted, Mr. Tristan, although I don't really think this is for your age group, but I appreciate the sentiment. And for anyone who's wondering, I do run a writing club out of my school, and one of my writing club kiddos is joining in with us today. So this is the final end of it, and probably the most nerve-wracking part of writing, my friend. And of course, my lovely husband, Dimitri, is always here for support. And the lovely and beautiful Miss Kendall. And I'm not sure who you are, Birch, but welcome, welcome, welcome. So does anyone have any questions about what's going on? Or because some of you may not be familiar with what happened in the first book or anything else of that nature. Cool. All right. Well, before I step on to a continuation of the reading, we're going to go ahead and, pick our second place winner. So right now, what's up on the table is the framed world map of Variance, which I am actually really, really proud of because I have worked my butt off on that map for a long time. Like, it went through a lot of revisions. So let me go ahead and click the wheel and we can pick our next winner of the evening. Yay! Awesome. So our next winner is a longtime friend of mine, and God, we've been friends for a long, long time. I met her in the military. So our next winner is Liz. So congratulations, my friend. Liz and I had, like I said, been friends for a long, hot minute, and I recently did was a guest on her podcast, Latina She Serves. When did I make all of that stuff? I've been doodling the map ever since I started writing the series because I needed to keep myself logistically straight. But I never put it in the first book because I didn't have anything really kind of finalized, and the world was still pretty much fluid. So once it was done, I hyperfixated over on YouTube on a couple of channels and learned how to do it myself. And so then I created my own map. This cover I did make myself, and I am redoing the first one to sort of match the series, mainly because it's really hard for me to try to explain to a graphic designer like what it is that I absolutely want. And I also changed my mind 50 million times before it's all said and done. So time is money, and this way I can do it. And I'm actually really, really happy with the way that it turned out. Like, I'm absolutely in love with it, especially it just fits so well. And if you've seen the photos, unfortunately, I don't really have a good printout of it. I just have one of my proofs that has some mistakes because thanks to the weather and other things, the books that I ordered for the release have yet to arrive. So all I have is a not so quite good image. But if you've been flouncing around on my social medias, you've seen it all this week. So yes, Um, dun, 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 dun. Any other questions? Let me scroll through real quick. Nope. Awesome. So I'm just going to check on my other social sites real quick. And if you have any questions, please pop it up and that way so I can answer you before we jump back into another reading. Nope. Alrighty. So I do miss having events in person. I'm not going to lie. It's kind of awkward here where I'm just here and I see a lovely list of people. And I do appreciate every single one of you guys that have shown up here. Love every last one of you. But I do miss being in person. The energy just isn't the same. You know what I mean? God, the last time that I was in person for a release was the last book of my Last Guardian trilogy, The Time of Prophecy. So that was like, 2 books ago, but still, like, gosh, has the world changed a lot in the past 2 years. So where was I? Here we go. Okay. Didn't realize how long this chapter is until you actually have to read it. That's a very long chapter. Yeah. You forget how much you write. Yes, I really am trying to hope that by the next time that the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, reset. Okay, I really am hoping that the next one we can do in person, I am going to try to not plan a release in the beginning of the year in January. I was just so excited to get this book done that I was like within the time frame of finishing to putting out. I was like, get it out and go. So hopefully next year I'm planning to have it in person at the lovely page 158, which is my favorite indie store. And I've like seriously, y'all, if you're anywhere in North Carolina or not, you can shop from there. And they're just an amazing group of people. They are fully supportive of the indie community and will get you pretty much everything they want. And they're just so sweet. I love them to death. Anyways, on with the reading. Once nestled in the safety of the trees, Mirra picked up the faint sound of running water. The trail seemed to be going in the same direction, so she followed it. After a short walk, the path opened up to a small clearing just large enough for them and their horses. Next to the small patch of grass was a small stream running bright and clear. Mirra eyed the stream and sighed in disappointment. She had hoped to perhaps fish for their meal. She dropped her pack and set about tending to the horses. Gaitlan had already unsaddled his horse, setting it free to graze. The tired beast shuffled straight to the water for a well-deserved drink. Mirra's horse joined it a few moments later. Gaitlan stood in the center of the clearing. Mirra dug around in the pack to retrieve the herbs that helped to clear his body away of most of the narcotics Lord Julian had given him. Gaitlan saw the herbs and scowled. No more. His voice was hoarse from screaming, dust, or grief, most likely all three. As long as you act like you're drugged, I'm going to keep shoving these down your throat, Mirra growled. Explicit. I'm not going to say because there are small children up here. Mirra clenched her fist around the air. Mirra clenched her fist. The air around her became aromatic from the herbs. Huh, me? Without me, Princeling, you be on your way to the executioner's block for the murder of your parents, leaving your throne wide open for Lord Julian. A bit of his old self. Yes, this is the official release. It's been available all day, but I couldn't celebrate it till this afternoon. It made it really hard to work. A bit of his old self sparked in Gaitlan's eyes at the mention of Lord Julian's name. Don't mention that traitorous man's name. Mirra sneered. We had to leave your sister in the hands of Lord Julian. Lord Julian is probably sitting in your father's seat. Lord Julian is probably sleeping in your parents' bed. Stop, Gaitlan growled. Mirra squared her shoulders, lifting her chin. Lord Julian. Lord Julian. Lord Julian. Gaitlan crossed the distance between them in 3 strides, stretching to his full height to loom over Mirra. She didn't back down. She tilted her head back and met him in the eye while her other hand drifted to the knife at her side. Don't say his name, Gaitlan growled. Mirra bared her teeth in a feral grin. Gaitlan lashed out, but Mirra was ready. Sidestepping, she brought her knee into Gaitlan's unprotected sternum, knocking the wind out of him. He fell to the ground, gasping for air. Mirra stood her ground, her whole body quivering. As much as she wanted to, she couldn't beat him to a bloody pulp. He was angry and had every right to be. But where he placed his anger, Mirra refused to be an easy target. Gaitlan stumbled to his feet, going after Mirra again. She dodged his attacks with ease, her hand still resting on the hilt of her dagger. Stop dancing around and fight me, you conniving wench. Stop toying with me and finish what your master started. Mirra weaved under his guard, taking the prince down with a well-placed leg sweep. However, Gaitlan managed to snag her upper arm, dragging her down with him. Mirra shifted to maintain her advantage, landing on Gaitlan's chest, knocking the air from his lungs again. Mirra's blade kissed his throat before he had the opportunity to regain his breath or organize his thoughts. She used every ounce of her remaining strength to keep him down. She brought her face close to his so that their nose nearly touched. She saw the hurricane of emotions raging just behind her eyes, and he saw the cold fury that chilled him to the bone. He is not my master, not anymore. My task that day was to kill your sister, not you. Lord Julian wanted your entire family gone. Gaitlan moved to throw her off, but she pressed her blade harder against his throat, drawing a tiny droplet of blood. I didn't. I went against the man that terrified me in ways that you can't even imagine. All for her. She's 10 times the noble you are, and frankly, she should get the crown. Mirra sat up, resheathing her dagger. I'm on her side, and she sacrificed herself so that you could escape. She stood glaring down at the prince. What are you going to do with the freedom her life gave you? She extended her hand towards Gaitlan. He looked at the back of the hand. He looked from the hand back to Mirra before taking it. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm dyslexic sometimes, even with my own writing. After helping him to his feet, she shoved the crushed medical herbs at him. Take these and gather some wood. I'll make camp. Gaitlan took the herbs, shoving them into his mouth and grimacing against the taste and the grit. He chased the herbs with a healthy swig of water from his water skin. The water helped the 30 mash of plant matter down his throat, but also intensified its sharp flavor. Making faces and smacking his tongue to erase the lingering taste, he gathered the fallen limbs from the forest floor. All right, I'm going to stop right there again and open the floor up for any other questions that have arisen. And yes, I do get tongue-tied reading my own stuff quite a bit. This is a really long chapter. Holy crap. Did not seem that long when I was writing it. No questions, comments, concerns? Alrighty. Excuse me. Oh. So I have a question from one of my friends who's texting me instead of joining in for whatever reason. So my Kendall asks, is there more between Mirra and the princess as she is letting on? Yes and no. Not in a romantic sense. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. But how their friendship evolves and how they work with each other does change a lot. For those who may not remember from the first book, the princess has a very idealized view of what nobles can do to help the society and what people want. She's pretty much like, your typical Susie Q, goody two shoes. I want to help, but I don't exactly have a firm understanding of what the people I'm trying to help actually want. So Mirra is the one who has sort of held that up to her face to help her, point out, like, you may want to help these people, but they want nothing to do with you because what you're offering isn't really what they need. So she's brought the princess a bit bound to earth. However, the princess, I can pretty much definitely say, is Mirra's first friend since being taken in by Lord Julian. She's never really been one to sort of connect to other people around her. She's always kind of put up a wall, from being um, abandoned as a baby to running wild in the street gang, and then of course, facing the gallows when she was like 12 years old. It kind of makes it a little hard for you to make friends, but for some reason, Brealyn was able to get past all of Mirra's walls and guards, and she actually was her first good friend that she recognized as a friend. Thank you for the question. And I need to take a swig. Alrighty. So, all right, we're gonna do one more small reading. I probably will most likely not finish the first chapter. I will kind of jump around a little bit, and then we will do our final prize of the evening. Just double checking, make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, coolness. So here we go. Where was my thing? Mirra eyed the prince sharply before turning to assess the paltry supplies. She grabbed the small rucksack, emptying its contents onto the ground. You're welcome. In addition to the bedroll and thin cloaks given to them at the tavern, they had enough dried foods to last them a day, maybe two if they didn't mind going hungry for a while. They also had a single flint and whetstone and a pitifully small bag of coins. It wasn't enough for a single person, let alone two. Mirra took out a small strip of dried meat, throwing it into her mouth whole. It was as tough as leather and just as tasteless. She splashed her face with water from the stream a couple of times before cupping her hands for a drink. Then she hobbled the horses. Gaitlan turned, dropping the wood near the center of the clearing. Do we have any flint? There's no need for a fire, Mirra said after swallowing. Gaitlan's face went dangerously still. Then why'd I have to gather wood? Had to give you something to do, didn't I? And while I doubt anyone is looking for us yet, I'd rather not risk it any more than we have to. Well, then how do we keep warm? Mirra shrugged, unfurling a bedroll. Ire flashed in Gaitlan's eyes once he realized Mirra had sent him on a useless errand. He opened his mouth to argue, but a wave of exhaustion crashed over him. Grudgingly, he snatched one of the bedrolls and curled up on the softest piece of ground furthest away from Mirra. Mirra watched him, wondering how far she could push him to keep his darkness from swallowing him whole. Too much effort, she thought, grabbing the other bedroll and curling up in the center of the clearing. Her hand lightly wrapped around the dagger's hilt. Sorry, itchy head. So far, the city watch had found no sign of the prince or your niece, my lord. Lord Julian shuffled the reports without reading them, knowing they all said the same thing. Well, I'm not surprised. If the prince had half a brain, he would have left the city before the watch sealed the gates. The other nobles seated along the table shifted uncomfortably in their seats. And your niece? One lord ventured. Lord Julian twisted his face into the perfect example of pained disappointment. My niece was never the same after her husband's death. I had hoped that the princess would help return her to her former self, but it's clear that the wrong royal has influenced her. I don't know why she went with him. Perhaps she was coerced, but I cannot ignore her hand in the untimely death of the king and queen. The tension around the table was palpable. The death of the monarch was never easy, but to lose both in such a bloody way at the hands of the heir was something the lords could not have fathomed, even in their darkest of days. Shouldn't the princess be present? Asked a young lord, breaking the silence. The lord was young, inexperienced, and only in this position because of the coup. Lord Julian didn't know the young lord's name at the moment, but if the young lord continued to press his luck, Lord Julian would ensure that no one would ever learn it. Princess Brealyn has confined herself to her chambers, mourning her parents and her brother. She has asked that I lead in her stead until she is ready to assume her role as a leader of our nation. The young lord frowned, pressing further. A number of this court have recently lost people as well, and yet here we are. She's our princess and the last remaining member of the royal family. I may not have had the pleasure of meeting her in person, but her reputation is well known. Even in the holdings along the mountains, we have heard of her. She has always prided herself on the care she has given to her people, and I find it suspect that she suddenly finds it too much to bear, locking herself away from the people that she, up until now, always fought for. Eat this little proud lord, urged a dark portion of Lord Julian's soul. Suck the marrow from his bones, then raise his lands to the dirt, salting the fields, burn everyone, everything down to the last living thing. He took a deep breath, subduing the violent presence beneath his iron will. I understand your frustration, Lord Halling, Tallinn Hastings. My lands are to the south along the border mountains. Ah, yes. As I said, young Lord Tallinn, I understand your frustration. But the princess, while having a stout heart, has never had to face the hardships as she does now. She is shaken to her core, and we all know that women do not have the same stalwart resolution as men. Around the table, the other lords chuckled and nodded in agreement. Newly minted lords, including Lord Tolan, kept their own counsel. There is one that would cause him trouble. My lords, thank you for your time. I know that we all have much to attend to. We will convene again in a fortnight. I trust this gives you ample time to ease your people's fears and to get your affairs in order until we meet again. The Council of Lords stood, murmuring their farewells and affirmations. Lord Julian watched Tallinn, turn and storm out of the council room without speaking to anyone. He would deal with the lordlings soon, but he had more pressing issues to handle at the moment. All around him, people wore either black clothing or black bands around their arms. The general mood in the castle was somber, with many of the servants bearing red-rimmed eyes. A slight, satisfied smirk tugged at the corners of his mouth, but he would never let it show. It wouldn't help him keep his position if people thought that the king's viper took joy from the death of his masters. Two guards outside the massive gilded doors snapped into attention as Julian approached, opening the doors with a bow. He smiled as he strode through the royal wing. Admittance to this part of the castle had been strict even before the massacre. Now no one came or went without Julian's expressed permission. And I realize how cruel I am writing a lot of words that sound a lot very, very same. I did not write this for readers, those of us who read it out loud. So the King's Viper is what they refer to as the Spy Master. That's kind of his name. Partially because he marks his agents with snake tattoos, and also partially because he uses a lot of poisons and venoms like a snake. So while to his face, they just call him the King Spy Master, behind his back, they typically call him the Viper. And he's very well aware of this name and uses it to his advantage because fear is the best tool to keep people in line, at least in his opinion. And I lost my train of thought. Oh, so this tongue tied. I'm sorry, y'all. It's been a long day. Anyways, so the first book was primarily told from Mirra's point of view. She was the sole storyteller throughout the entire thing, with maybe like an occasional little blurb here and there from Brealyn or the princess or even Lord Julian himself. And this one, there's a lot of bouncing around from different perspectives. Not only do we have Mirra's perspective, we will also have Gaitlan's perspective, and then we have the princess and the prince and a couple of other people as well. And to me, that was just a lot easier to tell the story than trying to like guess at what some people were saying and like tell you without telling you, and just it just made it flow a lot easier to jump from one character to another instead of kind of going through this weird third person omnipresent type of way. And I like it because it provides, it takes out a lot of like the Tolkien travel things. Like, don't get me wrong, Tolkien is one of my favorite authors of all time, but Lord knows that man ramble on when it comes to journey things. He describes every bush and rock, and that is not something that I want to do. So to help mitigate some of that filler travel times, I just like gray screen to another person, and we'll be in that area. By the time we come back to our other characters, they've already arrived at their destination. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't mind writing a little bit of travel pieces, to set up like the scenery or the seasons, but too much of it can just really bog down a story. And so I try to mitigate some of that by giving more points of view. Awesome. So we have given away the framed city map of Variance, and we have given away the framed world map. And so all that is left is a free signed copy of the Hidden Temple. So I wonder who our lucky first place contestant winner will be. So I'm on the wrong mouse. Sweet. So congratulations, Jean-Francois. You are the winner of the signed copy of the Hidden Temple. I almost said a Serpent's Coils. Good Lord have mercy. So, as a brief reminder before we do pop off, I just want to remind our winners that I will be reaching out to you tomorrow to organize a way to get your prizes to you. If you do not get back to me within 3 days, I'm going to pick another person at random and move it on. So, I do have one more prize that I do need to give away, because honestly, I don't do anything easily. I always do things kind of crazy. And this week is also the 3-year anniversary of my YouTube channel, which I offer writing help, book reviews, and so on and so forth. So while I have everyone here, I also did a quick little thingy for that one. So I'm going to do one more small winner for that one so that I don't have to forget about it, because my husband will tell you once I move on, when's my next reading? I don't read on my channel. Although if that is something that we are interested in, I can always do it. I know that when I read to my kids at school, they do find it rather entertaining because I do voices sometimes. But anyway, so I'm gonna do one more little small win prize thing for my YouTube anniversary winner, and then I will do a brief little reading, and then we'll just kind of wrap things up. So let me go ahead and do that. Last one of the night. Oh my goodness. So this winner is the Little Pie House. Christine, you won a prize. I will get up with you later, girly, to figure out what that is. And as like a side thing, because I like to, but good Lord, what is the word I'm looking for? to boost the promotions of my friends. The Little Pie House is an amazing bakery lady out of Wake Forest. Like, I love her stuff, and she's so sweet because she always does the gluten-free things for me because it's really hard to find gluten-free stuff. Like, I love the gluten, but the gluten doesn't like me. And so, congratulations, my darling dear. You win a prize, and I will get up with you about what that is because it's your choice. Yes, 3 years. It's hard to believe that I've been running this channel for 3 years. I made the switch after running a blog for about the same amount of time. But yeah, I find out that I like YouTube more, and I didn't think that I would like it because it's awkward talking to a camera, but apparently I'm just the right amount of awkward to be able to do it. So, with that being said, we're going to do our last little small reading that is definitely not going to take us to the end of the chapter. Yeah, definitely won't. And then I will cut out for the evening. And so thank you guys so much. But let me go ahead and get this last little bit of reading. If I can remember where I was. One lone guard stood outside a simple white door. Julian opened the door, walking into the main chamber of Princess Brealyn's rooms, like a creeper. The princess wore a simple... Oh, the like a creeper part's not in the book. That's just my commentary. The princess wore a simple black mourning dress and veil for her hair. Her face was free of all cosmetics, making her look wan and pale. Grief lingered around her eyes, but the sight of Lord Julian standing before her brought out some fire. Just because you've stolen the throne doesn't mean you can walk into my room unannounced. Julian chuckled. Yes, it does, princess. But that's not why I'm here. Julian sat down in a wingback chair, stretching his long legs out in front, one ankle crossed over the other. Princess Brealyn carefully shifted in her chair, one of her hands slowly sliding to reach into the folds of her dress. Julian knew that she kept a sharpened letter opener within her grasp. He nearly laughed at the absurdity, but her spirit was admirable, much like another young woman he knew. Then why are you here? Your absence has been noticed amongst the nobles. Brealyn scoffed. I wonder why. Julian scowled at the princess. Don't be pert. Your continued existence in the world depends on my good gracious. And your grip on the throne comes from mine. Brealyn leaned forward, placing her hands in her lap. The perfect picture of a demure woman, except for the wicked gleam in her eye. The people are only tolerating your presence. They know who has the right to the throne. I may be only 17, my lord, but I am the crown princess. And since you smeared my brother's name, the rule of the kingdom falls to me. You're a child in the eyes of the law. Brealyn leaned back, her face hardening into the mask of the queen that she would one day become. Only for another year. The weak-willed nobles will follow you until then. They know the law as well as we do. All the power you gained at the expense of my parents' lives, you'll lose. One way or another, I swear on their graves, you'll lose everything. The darks of Lord Julian's eyes spread to encompass the entirety of his eye. The shadows lengthened and darkened, stretching out for her. Brealyn gasped, reaching for her sharpened letter opener once more. Julian stood, stretching his hand between them. Black ichor pulled in his palm, coiling around his fingers before dropping to the floor with a heavy, wet sound. To her credit, Brealyn kept her composure, with only her wide eyes giving away her true feelings. A lot can happen in a year, Julian said before turning to leave, the coiling darkness disappearing into smoke just as he crossed the threshold. Spirited young women were only good for breaking, and soon before she made good on her promise. Brimming with barely checked aggression, Lord Julian made his way through the castle to the former king's chamber. The servants that carefully packed the king's and queen's personal effects jumped as he barged in, but kept their eyes to the task. The king's viper was a mysterious and dangerous man. Though they may not have ever met him, they were well aware of the tools at his disposal that assisted his climb to the seat of court. To catch his eye was to risk vanishing into thin air, never to be seen or heard from again. I'm going to the study, Julian growled. No disturbances. A massive mahogany desk took up most of the space, along with several straight back chairs. Only a single wall hadn't been claimed by the ebony bookcases, brimming with books that most likely hadn't been opened in decades. A great hearth took up the remaining wall. On its mantle was covered with bits of shell and heavily creased finger paintings and other remnants of a family that no longer existed. Julian picked up a miniature rough-hewn carbine, turning it this way and that with mild interest as he tried to determine what animal it was supposed to be. With a disgusted snort, he chucked the carving amongst the kindling before scowling up at the painting that hung overhead. A colossal waste of space for such an insignificant man. Alrighty, my lovelies, I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I believe that was a pretty good place to stop because, Lord Julian is a creep and he's cruel. And I want to leave some things as a surprise for those of you who are going to get your own copies of this. So, any last final questions before I pop off? Nope. Alrighty then. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate you being here to celebrate with me. I love doing these events. I love celebrating it because, in all honesty, it's a lot of work to go into a book. It takes at least a year to get anything kind of done between writing, editing, revising, and all that other fun jazz. And so the ability to share it with, um, thank you, Kendall. The ability to share it with friends, family, and even just potential friends and family who have never met before, but through the wonders of the internet get to meet. So again, thank you guys. To my winners, I will be reaching out to you shortly, tomorrow, obviously, and you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much. I love you all. Goodbye.